I'm going to be showing you how to create histograms both by hand and by using the calculator. The first thing we need is some data. Here is a data list that I recently created. The first thing in creating histogram, I find it easier to sort the data, and we can see it in order. So I've taken this data set and sorted it. You can do that in the calculator. I'll show you how to do that in the second half of the video. And then what we want to do is figure out the class width. Now, if we wanted to, let's create a histogram with 6 classes. Classes is kind of a slippery word. I oftentimes use the word interval, right, which is more or less the same thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this data up into 6 even intervals that will fit the data from the minimum to the maximum. So what we need is the class width, which is going to be the maximum minus the minimum divided by 6, because we're going to cut it up into 6 parts. And what we can do, right, the maximum is 55. We can see by ordering it, that makes it easy to find the maximum. And the minimum is 8. So this is going to be 47 divided by 6, which is going to equal 7.83. Now, if we're looking for a class width, it's not very convenient to have a decimal number, so you always go up. Even if this was 7.2, you would go up to a class width of 8. So what we're going to do is start from this minimum value and create 6 classes with a width of 8. To do this, what I'm going to do is clear out a bunch of this upper work so that I can show you the next step. So here you can see I moved the class width up here. And what I'm going to do is create a frequency table. The first thing I need to do is create all of the classes. And here you can see I've created the classes. I've started with my minimum. I've gone up by a width of 8. So every time you go up 8, 8 plus 8 is 16, 16 plus 8 is 24, 24 plus 8 is 32, and so on, creating really the divisions. And notice that this is all the values of data which are greater than or equal to 8 but less than 16. So if there's a data point that equals 16, it's going to be in the second interval or second class, and it will not be in this first class. So then I can go through and say, all right, here's our 16. Remember, it's all the values less than 16. That's this whole inequality. So equal to or greater than is in the next one, less than 24. And then you can see where all the other divisions are. And here are all the other divisions. There are 2 in this, 3, 3, 5, 7, and 4. And so those can be filled in over here, like that. And here we have our frequency table. From the frequency table, it's fairly quick to draw a histogram. You need a set of axes. The x-axis is going to be your intervals, so it'll look something like this. You can see I've lined up my intervals with my x marks along the x-axis. That makes it easy. So the y-axis, that's going to be the frequency. So we don't have a context for this data or units even. So really this is just the data. And so there are no data points less than 8. We have 2, so I'm going to make a box that's 2 high. Really that would be 2. Personally, I don't actually fill out the vertical axis too much. I usually put the values on top of the boxes. The next one, 16 to 24, is 3. And then that's the same at 3. Then it moves up 2 to 5. And then it moves up another 2 to 7. And then down to 4. Be right around there. And there's the histogram. And I did that, kind of rough. If I had my grid, I could have done these heights a little bit more precisely. But that's a pretty good picture of this data. Now I'll show you how to make a histogram using your TI-84 from an original data set. And you can see over here is our original data set. In order to enter that into your calculator, you have to go to the Stat button, which is right here. And in the top here, we have the Edit menu. First item is also Edit. You go into there and you get into your stat lists. Now there's already some information in L1, so what I'm going to do is go up to the heading, which is that L1 up top, and then I'll hit the Clear button. Notice that at the Edit line down here, it's cleared, but until I actually hit Enter, it won't do it. There it is. And now I can start entering in, my data, one number at a time, which, given that I have 20 numbers, might take a little bit. So I'm going to pause this for a moment. All right, so now you can see that I have entered all the numbers in. If I am at the bottom of the list and hit down, it'll bring me back up to the top. At this point, what I need to do is go to my stat plot to set that up. I can quit, I suppose, to get to the home screen. Go to my stat plot. Now, the TI-84 can do 3 different plots simultaneously. I only want to do 1, so I'll use this first one. So, I can choose any of the 3, but I'll choose the first one and hit Enter. This gives me my stat plot menu. If it's not already on, I'm going to hit Enter to make sure it's on. Now we have these 6 different types. Histogram is this third type, which again it's already selected for. If I wanted a different one, all I have to do is hit Enter and it would switch. You can see that the parameters down below change depending on which one you select. I'm going to select histogram. And it's looking for an X list, which my data is in L1, and the frequency. And what this is asking is this one entry, the first entry of 18, how many times does that occur? And that really occurs once. Because this is original data list, each one occurs once. When we're given a frequency table, that's when we would enter frequency. So what we can do is check to see if there's any functions in. There aren't. I can hit Graph, and it looks like I can only see some of this. Now with histograms, it's going to be important to work with your window settings. So let's go to the window settings, and we can set our Xmin and Xmax. We know the maximum value is 60. So we definitely need to increase our Xmax. Maybe I'll just make that 80. And then your Ymin, oftentimes I like to do a little bit negative, that way I can see the x-axis. And Ymax, how many times do these things happen? Looks like the original data, we have 3 3 is the biggest, but we might be grouping these. We can change the interval for the histogram. So maybe I'll put 6 for the y max, and now we can look at it. Oops. And one thing that we actually need to be very careful about is this x scale. X scale is the interval for your histogram, and so it needs to be at least 2, or the calculator really doesn't like it. Now if we graph it, we can see our data as a histogram. You can see there's sort of a spike down low. It seems to be a skewed data set, skewed down to the lower half. If we hit trace, then we can move around and get on one of these bars. All right, so now you can see this first one is a minimum of 18, anything less than 20, so that's effectively 18 and 19, which you can see in the original data set. There are 3 of those, which is why n is 3. And then if we move over from 20 less than 22, again, that's 20 and 21. There's 3 20s, 2 21s, so that's where it's 5. Now, if I go back to my window settings, and I change this x scale, and I make it 5, for example, and hit graph, I'm going to get a different interval. And it looks like I need to increase my y max. Maybe I'll make that 10 now. There we are. And if we hit our trace, you'll notice that the interval goes from 15 to 20 now, because I entered in that x scale of 5. And so this is going to be 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, because it has to be less than 20. So everything less than 20, again, there are 3 of them in this case. That's why n is 3. We go to the next one, 20 to 25. We have 3 20s, 2 more 21s. We have a 22 and a 23. Has to be less than 25. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's why x is 7. And so by changing that x scale, you can create any histogram with any interval that you want, so that you can see the right amount of detail. Again, as an example, if we make our x scale too big, if we make it 20, let's take a look at see what that looks like. Well, we're still getting actually some reasonable detail with that. Of course, we need to increase our y max again. All right, we actually see this skewed trend, so that's that's giving us information. If we make it 50, then there's really just not a whole lot. Why is that starting from the negative? Oh, right, because that is where I'm telling it to start. The interval always starts from that x min. So if I make that 0, for example, and now you can see that it's starting at the 0, which is also another important control. So you can set the beginning of your intervals by changing that x min. And we can see we're starting to really not get very good detail here. We're losing a lot of information. It's just not very useful anymore. And in the extreme, you can combine all of your data, and then it's really kind of silly. Right? There's no detail whatsoever. So from one extreme to the other, you can have too much detail in which you don't really see good patterns. You want to find that nice balance where you can see the pattern easily.